specific. It is a broad mission, but it is a very specific mission.
Overwhelming force. What should that require?
It requires political, diplomatic, intelligence, law enforcement, financial, and military effort, all coming together in a campaign. And nobody should think this is going to be, we go in and it's over in 2 days and we're out. This is going to change the way we do business. It's going to change the way we go about our daily life here in the United States. It's going to require a greater emphasis on homeland defense, so we can defend ourselves against those who, notwithstanding our best efforts overseas, are still trying to get in to the country to hurt us. And so we should see this as a long-term campaign and do apply decisive force to it. And that force isn't just military force. It's all the elements of national power that are at our disposal.
Presumably beyond the 50,000 reservists and National Guard troops who are being activated, the number could go way up.
But don't just see it in terms of activating reservists. The Pentagon has a fabulous force, all of whom now want to be a part of this campaign. But just don't see it in those distinctly military terms. Because, in fact, going after a lot of these cells and finding these people, it's more in an intelligence war, and we've got a great intelligence community. It's a law enforcement war. It's finding out how they get their finances, how do they move people, how do they cover people when they get into a place like the United States. They were in this country legally. And so it's that kind of a war, which isn't just a military war. It's a different kind of war. And the so-called Powell Doctrine, as you describe it, can cover this kind of contingency as well. Use all the force at your disposal, make sure you know what you're going after, and stick with it until you succeed, get that decisive victory.
And what is the exit strategy?
That was never part of the Powell Doctrine, but I'll accept the question. The exit strategy is when we know that the American people are living in safety without this kind of a threat. And it may be a long time before we can create such circumstances again, but we'll get there because we're a proud people, we're strong people. Notwithstanding the depth of this tragedy and the sadness it is inflicted upon our nation, look at the strength that has emerged. Look at how people are shaking each other's hands and hugging each other again, and going to our churches and mosques and synagogues, and reinforcing our belief in our society. They can knock down buildings, they can kill thousands of us and cause so many Americans to grieve. They can't destroy our society, they can't destroy who we are, they can't destroy America.
Since 1976, when President Ford was in the White House, there's been this executive order on the books. Let me read it to you. No person employed by or acting on behalf of the United States government shall engage in or conspire to engage in assassination. Is it time to change that?
That it is still on the books, and as part of our campaign plan, we're examining everything. How the CIA does its work, how the FBI and Justice Department does its work. Are there laws that need to be changed or new laws brought into effect to give us more ability to deal with this kind of threat? So everything is under review.
What's the difference now as opposed to 10 years ago when you led the U.S. military, you were chairman of the Joint Chiefs in the Gulf War? What's the biggest difference between this war and that war?
That war was easy to see, easy to define, with an enemy that essentially sat there waiting to be attacked when we finally did attack it. In this case, the enemy is clever, more resourceful, broken down across the world in many, many countries in small cells, doing everything to remain hidden with a long time horizon. They will take months and years to plan an operation. And so it is a much more difficult enemy to find and fix. But that's what we're working on, finding them and fixing them. And when we find them and fix them, then we will go in and finish them.
So what I'm hearing you saying is that there still may be terrorists at large, even here in the United States right now.
I can't ignore that possibility. It would be foolish to do so. And I can assure you that the law enforcement activities of the United States government are following every lead. 4,000 FBI agents are working this in the field. Another 3,000 support personnel are working. The CIA and many other agencies are hard at work using their vast resources to go after this problem and to deal with that possibility.
And finally,
at the same time, even though there may be people wandering around, America has got to get back to work. We've got to get back to some sense of normalcy. If we stick in our bunkers and walk around afraid, they will have won. Well, we're not a fearful people. We know how to overcome tragedy, and we will restore a sense of normalcy to this society, to this country very quickly in a way that will impress the world.
On that note, let me thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wolf.
And we'll get reaction from the congressional leadership of the House of Representatives shortly. But first, I want to go back to New York, where CNN's Aaron Brown has just accompanied the U.S. Coast Guard and viewed the awesome destruction from the air. These are the first aerial pictures from New York that CNN has. Aaron, walk us through precisely what you have.
We will do that. Wolf, good morning to you. We're on Staten Island looking across to the southern tip of Manhattan. You can just see the smoke. And in fact, from here, you can hardly tell, other than the smoke, that anything happened. We were coming in on a small Coast Guard cutter to get to the helicopter, and it wasn't until we were, honestly, almost offshore that you began to see the extent of the damage. Then you get in the air. And when you get in the air, it unfolds in front of you. We thought, to be perfectly honest, we would be shocked by what we saw, and we can only assume that we've seen so much since Tuesday, we are temporarily shocked out. In fact, as we came around the southern tip of the island and started to move in closer, it was almost a sense of awe. Awe at the audaciousness of the plan, awe at the evil brilliance of the plan, awe at the power that those two jet bombs, fully loaded wide-body jets, their power to destroy. It turns out, as sometimes is the case, the cliches in many cases are true. As you come around the island, we're moving now to the west, around the southern tip of Manhattan Island. The Trade Center towers would have been just in front as we zoom past that building. Just in front of there, tower number 1 would have been right there, right where you're looking in between those two buildings. Now we're farther to the west looking back. You see the smoke. To us at least, it is a much wider area of damage than we thought it was from our location from where we've been broadcasting. There's a huge hole in the middle. And I'll venture a guess here, and it's only that as one of the two towers came tumbling down, it crashed on top of what I believe was building number 5 of the World Trade Center complex. As we say, the cliches turn out in many ways to be true. It does look like Mount St. Helens in an urban setting erupted. Oddly enough, it could have been a kind of modern Germany at the end of World War II, after the Allies moved in, bombing Germany. But it is in this relatively tight 8 or 10 block area. It's not vast across the city. It's just focused on this small area. It is also somewhat sickening when you look down and you see the dirt and the steel and the concrete, the water pouring on it all, and you realize as we stand here on this beautiful September Sunday morning in New York, there are 5,000 people still buried. Wolf?
Aaron, did you get close enough to convey to our viewers what obviously these pictures, as dramatic as they are, and our photographer Dave Rust has done his usually excellent job in getting these pictures. Did you get a sense what maybe we can't appreciate the sense of smell?
Yeah, I've been smelling this smell, Wolf, since I guess sometime Tuesday. It is. I leave and it's all over me, and even at 1,500 feet, and maybe I'm imagining this. I can't promise I'm not. Yeah, you could smell it, and you would see, and we hadn't seen this before, from the upper stories of some of the surrounding buildings. Fire department has run hoses up to the top stories and is pouring literally thousands, if not millions and millions of gallons down on that smoldering mass of death and destruction.
All right, Aaron Brown in New York. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of these pictures as the day continues and as these days continue. Thank you so much for joining us. And let's get back to congressional action and reaction now from Capitol Hill. We turn to two top members of the U.S. House of Representatives. Joining us in our Dallas bureau, the House Majority Leader, Dick Armey of Texas, and here in Washington, the House Minority Leader, Dick Gephardt of Missouri. Gentlemen, thanks to both of you for joining us. First of all, Mr. Armey, I just want to get your reaction, and I'll ask Mr. Gephardt for the same reaction, your reaction to what we just saw, those pictures that Aaron Brown described.
Well, obviously, the first thing you realize is just how, as Aaron says, how expansive that damage is. And, of course, it again, I suppose, is a graphic reminder. We've got some rebuilding to do, and this, I think, speaks directly to where the Congress of the United States can be most beneficially helpful to the people of New York, to the nation, and to the future of this country.
What about that, Mr. Gephardt?
Well, obviously, we agree with that. Just looking at these pictures, I'm taking what 19 people, in this case 4 or 5 people, maybe 10 people could do. They did what Japan and Germany couldn't do in World War II, what all of our adversaries through history couldn't do. We lost more people on our soil than in any conflict in history. It makes me very sad and sympathetic with the people who died and their families, and it makes me angry. And I want to get to the bottom of this, and I want New York to recover, I want our nation to recover, and I want this never to happen again.
Congressman Armey, is it time for the Congress to go beyond the resolution that you passed the other day and formally enact a declaration of war?
We will, I think, no. No, I don't think it's time for a declaration of war. It's time to seriously assess what exactly would be the espionage, investigation, and enforcement, apprehension and enforcement requirements. This is going to be more covert operations than overt operations. We will give the government the tool it needs to to deal with the guilty, but we will also always, as we are as a nation, preserve the rights of the innocent, and that will be as paramount as can be. So it will be a very cautious thing, a thorough thing, done with a sense of differentiation between innocence and guilt, with a mutual commitment to the innocent, as our commitment has been so aptly expressed to the guilty.
Congressman Gephardt, do you agree with that?
I think what we passed the other day, almost without a dissenting vote, was a authorization for the President to use force against the people, organizations, or countries that contributed to this horrible disaster, and to try to prevent further disasters. He has the authority to marshal the forces of the United States to do that. The night before, as you know, we appropriated what may be the beginning, or hopefully will help toward the recovery and help in the defense effort. So Congress, as Dick has said, has given the President the resources and the authority that we need, and with the help and the great bravery of the American people, I think we're going to see this through.
Congressman Armey, based on what you're hearing, tell the American public right now and the people around the world watching this program what kind of strike, what kind of military action they should be prepared to observe from the United States.
Well, they might be prepared to not observe it at all, in the sense that we all watch Desert Storm. Basically, what you have is these snakes are in their holes, scattered around the country, world, plotting and scheming. We got to find where they are, and we got to kill them before they get out of their holes. And that's not necessarily going to be something that the American people are going to see as it happens, or hear a great deal about it in any kinds of detail before it happens. It is something that has to be carried out in the same way they carry out their activities, behind quiet doors and in a sense under the cloak of secrecy. We have to do the same. You've got to use their tactics to catch them.
But Congressman Armey, should the American public be prepared for a U.S. military invasion of Afghanistan, where the Taliban regime harbors, protects Osama bin Laden's al-Qaeda organization, as we heard from Secretary of State Colin Powell?
I believe that will depend a great deal on the Taliban and how they react. If they react with defiance and arrogance, if they say not only will we harbor these people, but we will foster these activities, they could be calling that wrath very clearly and very specifically upon themselves. So they have an opportunity to follow that great adage that a word to the warning is a wise thing for them to heed, and we're giving them that advice you know, clean up your act